Dear friends from around the world, I'm here in Jerusalem and I do the recording of our First Friday message from out of here for October 2017. I've been here now for a few days, and most importantly for me, I've been here around Yom Kippur. Actually the first time. I've never been here for Yom Kippur. And it was a tremendous experience for me. It was very deep, very substantial. On the eve of Yom Kippur, I was at the Wailing Wall at the hotel, and I just came there to pay reverence and to connect. But the atmosphere, the presence of the Lord caught me to an extent that I've been there as long as never before, maybe 2.5 hours or something. And it was such a beautiful moment in that atmosphere to be in the presence of the Lord and to pray and to meditate and to enjoy the presence, to be entrenched by the presence of the Lord. And it was such a deep and moving experience. So that was on Friday evening, on the eve of Yom Kippur. And then the next day I've been with Sukkot Hallel, and they had a Yom Kippur service around noon. And I was deeply moved by that service. It was like a messianic Yom Kippur service, 2 hours. And the depth and the substance and the liturgy and the worship and the presence of the Lord were so substantial that it kind of continued, the experience of Friday evening continued on that Yom Kippur day, on that Saturday. And it was again a very deep experience for me. And I came on short notice. I did not plan it long term. And I felt the guiding of the Lord, the leading of the Lord very powerfully during my time here, starting with Yom Kippur. Now, as you know, after Yom Kippur comes Sukkot. So we are now in the first days of Sukkot. And thinking about Sukkot, it gives a lot of things that are stimulated in me when I consider Sukkot. The Tabernacle, the Feast of Tabernacles, the presence of the Lord in different ways. What the Jewish people commemorates on the Feast of Tabernacle is the walk through the desert, the 40 years, as they came from out of Egypt towards the Holy Land, towards the land of promise. And they were traveling in tents. And so the tabernacles, the tents, they commemorate, that's the commemoration to that history. Now, let's ponder it just for a minute, and I want to ponder on it on two different levels. One level is connected to our very personal lives, because we all, once in a while, have our deserts and have our walk through the desert, as the children of Israel had so many years ago with Moses. And how did the Lord lead the children of Israel through the desert? By His presence. And His presence was manifested during the daytime by the cloud of His presence, and during the night times by the fire, the pillar of fire, the fire of His presence. Well, connect this to your own personal life, just as a matter of encouragement. If we go through the desert, we may invite and we may expect the presence of the Lord even in the middle of our desert. His cloud covering us in the middle of the desert. His light by night and His warmth by night covering us in the middle of the desert. So it's a word of encouragement to you and to me. As you walk through a desert, as you are in a difficult place, as you are seeking the Lord and you feel He has left you alone, He has abandoned you, and you are in a kind of a desert, in a kind of a challenge that's beyond your ability. Trust the Lord, and that's the message of support for you and for me personally. Trust the Lord that His cloud, His presence, His shadow is over you during the heat of the desert daytime. And the fire of His presence is with you during the cold of the night. And He gives you light and He gives you direction, even in the middle of the desert. He's with you. Be encouraged. That's the message of the Feast of Tabernacles. Be encouraged, because the presence of the Lord is promised to be with you in the middle of your desert. So the first application for you and for me personally. And then there is a second application, and that is connected to the mandate of Global Prayer Call. And I just want to read briefly from the book of Zechariah, chapter 14, because as most of you will know, that's the reference to the nations going to the Feast of Tabernacles after the return of the Lord in chapter 14 of the book of Zechariah. And just let me read briefly verse 16 and 17. And in the end it says, those who will survive the plague, the judgment on the nations that went against Jerusalem, they will go up to Jerusalem each year to worship the King, the Lord of hosts, to celebrate a time of thanksgiving. And any nation anywhere in all the world that refuses to come to Jerusalem to worship the King, the Lord of hosts, will have no rain. But the first thing is to see all the nations will send their delegations. That's the plan, that's the purpose of Sukkot, that the nations will come, send their delegations and worship the King after the return of Messiah Jesus, worship the King in Jerusalem at the Feast of Tabernacles. So there's a message to the nations. That's the main message, to the nations. Number one, those who went against Jerusalem, they will be judged. Number two, they who have survived, they are more than invited to come year by year to the Feast of Tabernacles to worship the King after his return. And that connects to our mandate as Global Prayer Call. So the second encouragement for you, for me, is pray, continue to pray, and to stand in the gap for your nation. For your nation, as we move more and more, the move is accelerating towards a valley of decision in connection with Jerusalem. Your nation needs prayer. God loves your nation. God wants your nation not to be trapped into the spirit of Babel, to move against Jerusalem and the end-time purposes of God and the promises and covenants of God with Jerusalem, Jewish Jerusalem. He does not want your nation to go astray and to go in that dangerous direction. Rather, he wants your nation to become a sheep nation. So I encourage you on Sukkot, on the Feast of Tabernacles, to pray for your nation, intercede for your nation. I know my nation, Germany, needs that. And I'm thoroughly challenged back again to intercede for my nation, Germany, and come together with others who feel the same burden, especially after the election we had in September, which was not a good one. So I want to encourage you to pray for your nation. And I want to encourage you in the spirit of the Feast of Tabernacles to intercede for your nation, that it will not go against Jerusalem, neither now nor in the future, and it will become a sheep nation that joyfully will send their delegations on the Feast of Tabernacles year by year after the return of the Lord, to rejoice, to worship, to pray, and to lift up the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. But intercession is needed now, because the nations are in a valley of decision. So that's my message to you, dear friends, for First Friday of October 2017. Thank you so much for your attention. May the Lord bless you and strengthen you and lift you up in the spirit of the Feast